Today we're looking at the St. Louis Blues' prospect pipeline, and there's some interesting players in here that they've added over the last few years. St. Louis has never really bottomed out in the NHL, and they still have managed to draft and acquire some talent from around the league that I think sets them up to be pretty solid for a little while from here. Leading the way, we're going to start in the depth category, and we've got Justin Carbonneau in here, who they just picked up in the draft. You can't deny the skill level. You cannot deny the offensive output from him. There were some absolutely wow-inducing moments when I watched Carbonneau this past year, but that goes for both ends of the spectrum. This is a player that has a lot to give, and I think a long way to go in their game, but if he hits, I think there's a lot here. I feel like he might fall somewhere in the middle, maybe a guy that does score a lot in the AHL, but may not get away with as much in the NHL, and maybe a guy who ends up in your top 9 as a complimentary scorer with some power play time here and there, but at the end of the day, this is a really, really talented player, and I think his talent will take him a long way. While he might ride the line here for me between a depth and a maybe player, I do think that over the next few years he'll learn the right lessons and grow enough where he could at least become an NHL player. Dalibor Dvorsky is in here as well. Now, I have been very on the record with him over the years about not being the biggest fan of him, and a top 10 pick was a little bit much for me, but watching him in the NHL here and there this season, I mean, I don't know if I see a long-term solid middle 6 center that is worth picking in the top 10, but this is a guy who I do think plays a smart enough defense-first style of play that might be able to work out long-term as a third-line center that just kind of goes out and eats some minutes with some offensive ability as well. I think the pace of his game is really a limiting factor, but he is pretty strong on his feet, the skill level is pretty solid, and the finishing ability is really, really good, so who knows where he goes from here, but I think he'll be a player regardless. I'm really hoping Otto Stenberg has a really, really good season this year in the AHL. It looks like he was injured for stretches of last year, and I hope that getting back on his feet this year could really do him some good because the upside on him is really, really high. But like Carbonneau, I think there is low enough of a floor that he may end up a maybe player by next season, but at the end of the day, I still love the upside, and very similar to Carbonneau, I have to believe in that upside and that potential because the skill level with a guy like Stenberg is crazy good, and I feel like as he gets more mature and grows in the North American game, he might be able to find his way back into the discussion of an NHL gig. It might surprise some people to see Adam Jiricek in here, but every single time I watched Brantford this year, yes, he's a guy who wasn't scoring a ton. I just think there's a ton to dig into with Jiricek's game. He is one of the better defensive defensemen that I remember watching in the last few years. Just really, really mobile, really smart with his positioning and awareness, underrated skill as well on the puck, and I just feel like if he can stay healthy and get a full season in and play a lot of minutes, I feel like he could become an NHL player and ideally should become an NHL player. The other one is Jimmy Snuggerud, and I mean, there's no doubt about it. At the very least, I see a top 9 scorer here. I watched him with the Blues for Scouching Live this year, and I really liked what I saw. I think he's come a really, really long way in his game with diversifying his game a little bit, distributing the puck a little bit more, not just being a guy who relies on really, really heavy individual skill and finishing ability, a wicked shot. I mean, that'll take you a ways, but I think you need to grow a little bit as a player to work out long-term in the NHL in that regard, and I think he's done so. I think there's a really, really intriguing player here, and he's one that I've definitely really grown on as he's gotten older. There's a lot of players in the maybes category, though, that I also really, really like for this team. I thought Theo Lindstein had a really solid season this year. Again, I'm not totally certain of an NHL player there, but he is in that sort of Adam Jiricek vein where he's safe, but relatively boring, but efficient and effective, and just goes out and plays solid minutes, and I think he's probably the guy here who is riding the line of being a depth player the most. They went out and got Logan Mailloux this summer, and I mean, say what you will about his career to this point, but there is a level of offensive ability to his game, but also the defensive side of the puck is still a huge work in progress, and that was never more evident with his time in the NHL with the Montreal Canadiens this year. It just was a non-option in my opinion. He's the type of player where the offense really at this point has to outweigh the defensive holes, and I'm not sure it's quite there, so that's what puts him down here, and he is in his last year of eligibility for this list. I did really like Juraj Pekarčic's season this year with Moncton. I didn't put him in the depth category because I do want to see him tested at the men's level really, because at the Q level and on the line that he was playing on, he had a very clearly defined role, and I think he really thrived in that role, but I do feel like his game is maybe a little bit limited for the NHL, but I could easily see it, so he's bumped up into this tier, and I've really liked what I've seen of him in the past season. Adam Dzeko is a solid player all around. I still have a lot of hope for a guy like Ondrej Kos, who again needs to stay healthy, but whenever I've seen him and he's really dialed dialed in. There's a lot of skill and upside there. Simon Robertson is a guy who's had a really rocky road in his development since being drafted. He was a big time surprise for me in training camp for St. Louis last year, watching a little bit of him there, and then he got injured and missed the vast majority of the season. And if you look under the hood at his overall scoring numbers, especially at even strength, given his ice time and given the number of games that he played, he actually had a pretty darn good rookie season in the AHL. And popping in on him and watching him here and there a little bit, I still see a really, really good player there. But again, he's one of these guys where it's going to be top 9 scorer or nothing at all. And I don't know if it's quite enough for the NHL, but I want to believe because I just love this guy. Colin Ralph is fine, similar to a Theo Lindstein. He was solid at the World Juniors and he is what he is. Same thing kind of goes for Lucas Fischer. I think there's more to give in Fischer's game. There's more to like, there's more energy, there's better skating ability to me. But in regards to his projectability, I don't know about a huge ceiling, but considering Sarnia's output as a team this year, he had a really good year and he is still very young, so another year could be a huge benefit for him. I liked the pickup of Mikhail Fyodorov in this year's draft class. I think he's a long-term bet on skill and upside. There's a lot of upside and probably top 9 scorer or nothing at all type with him, and I think he's got a ways to go to get there, but he could do it. I could see it. And down in the bottom tier, most of these guys, I'm not really surprised, just haven't quite worked out to this point over my history of watching them. I do think players like Jakob Stancil and William McIsaac are guys that I think really push the boundaries of this tier. I think both of those players have had really, really strong seasons last year. I'm not sure Stancil has quite the juice to be an NHL player, but I think with a good year in the AHL this year or ECHL or something, there might be a case for him to be a maybes player. I do think Will McIsaac is a player that could dig himself out of this tier. I think that this year his skating ability really combined with the physical side of his game a little bit more. I think he was carrying the puck a little bit more confidently this year than he was the prior season. And I think that for the rawness of his game that I remember when he was a draft eligible, he's really refined things on a really, really good Spokane team that I know is really big on player development and really playing the long game with high-end talent players. And there might be a case that Will McIsaac is another one of these guys that grows in their game another step and might work out. I think there's some interesting tools there. So the St. Louis Blues, I think, have done really well. I'm giving them a 1D. I think all things considered over the years, I haven't necessarily agreed with everything they have done, but through it all, they have proven me wrong, I think, in a few spots here and there. But considering this is a team that has never really bottomed out in the NHL in the past few years, having what they have is pretty good. Guys like Carbonneau, I think, is close to a maybe, but I could easily see the talent working out. But Dvorsky, I imagine, will push for an NHL gig this year. Snuggerud will almost certainly be in the NHL this year. I really like Adam Jiricek. I'm really hopeful about Otto Stenberg. I still have faith in Simon Robertson, and I think his training camp performance last year is also a good indicator, and I hope that he had a good summer of training because a full, healthy season could really do him some good if he gets played some good minutes. And there's also some intriguing names on defense that have something to bring to the game that I could see being NHL players one day. Lucas Fischer, Logan Mailloux, Theo Lindstein, Colin Ralph, they're all solid dudes and maybe something works out. They even picked up a nice high upside, risky-ish bet in net with Love Harenstam this year. I didn't think he was particularly amazing this year, but he was solid. There's nothing really I can point to that I think will say he's not an NHL goaltender, but this is a player who has had some really questionable performances this past season in some key games, and we'll see where things go with him, but he's an interesting pickup as well. So all things considered, I think St. Louis is doing really, really well, and I think this NHL team might be hanging around for a while. I'm not sure about contention, but they're not going to have to worry about filling out some holes in their lineup, I think, over the next few years. And with that, we're going to call it. If you liked the video, definitely like and subscribe. If you really liked it, definitely consider a subscription over at Scouching.ca, where you can get access to all kinds of fun data tools and our Discord server and plenty of other fun stuff that you're just not going to find anywhere else on the internet. So check that out at Scouching.ca. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.